Hello viewers, today on Tea on the Terrace I have some amazing guests, but you will know them in different light. But today they will be focusing their conversation, our conversation, on the LCDS and how the LCDS is in our daily lives, how the LCDS forms part of who we are in Guyana and our development trajectory. So as we uh, embark on our Tea on the Terrace today, we are at the National Mangrove Center at Nari. And I have some great people with me. I'll ask them to introduce themselves, and later in the program you will hear from them. Starting with our beautiful administrator here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Keen Mosley. I'm the coordinator for the Mangrove program here at NARI. Hello, Mr. President. Thank you. I'm Pradeepa Bolnath, and I work with the Ministry of Natural Resources, and I support work on the low carbon development strategy implementation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Minister Vanessa Ben, Minister within the Ministry of Housing.
I'm your servant. I am your chief servant.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sham Nocta, supporting you, Mr. President, on climate change and biodiversity.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ashley Singh, Finance Minister, and it's a great pleasure to be here.
They are all on this edition of Tea on the Terrace with the LCDS as our flavor, as our brand, with the LCDS as our wake-up coffee this morning. We're now going to hear from Keen about some of the work, the great work they do at this center, and how we have been investing in securing our coastline through protecting our mangroves and also replanting mangroves across our coastline. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Again, welcome to the Mangrove Center. It's an educational experience on what Guyana has been doing with regards to our mangrove restoration and conservation program. The center serves as the hub for our educational program, where we educate the general public and our students on the importance of mangroves to Guyana's coastal resilience, as well as what we have been doing over the years to actively restore our coastline through the integration of what we refer to as the green-gray infrastructure approach. That is combining our hard sea defenses with our mangrove restoration program. Of course, mangroves not just serve as a coastal protection, but there's a biodiversity aspect. For every hectare of mangrove that we restore, we also protect our biodiversity, our shorebird, as well as our migratory birds that depend on our mangrove ecosystems.
And these are some of the birds that are in our existing mangrove system.
And as part of that...
how many species of birds we have in the mangrove now? Have we documented?
Within the mangrove system, we have documented, I think, over 50 coastal and shorebirds. So one of the important things is that we're now translating this into livelihood opportunities. We recently in November completed a training activity for community persons in ecotourism so that they can now be able to effectively deliver a mangrove-related tour.
We also do honey in the mangrove
Yes,
now.
we're working with the Guyana Livestock Development Authority to expand the honey operations within mangrove areas, as well as having new persons within communities engage in agriculture within mangrove areas. So they're earning a livelihood for every hectare.
How many visitors you had at the center so far?
We've had over 5,000.
Beautiful. Sham, tell us something about, come closer so you can tell us something about mangrove and the economic benefit of mangrove.
Well, Mr. President, mangroves will provide an opportunity for livelihoods. For example, local fishermen have a close association with mangroves. Mangroves are also an important ecosystem with a wide variety of biodiversity that is excellent for bird watching, for nature-based tourism. Along Guyana's coast, as we can see as we travel along from Georgetown the Lower East Coast. There's a proliferation of mangroves, and with that, we are probably feeling a little bit more secure now from sea level rise and extreme weather events, but it's also opening up some exciting opportunities. Some of us who are up early in the morning will be witnessing the amazing bird life, and we also see groups of people venturing out to different areas. So with mangroves, we're doing several things in terms of protecting biodiversity, safeguarding our livelihoods, and safeguarding our lives in terms of helping to protect against extreme weather, sea level rise. But it's also providing an opportunity for livelihood opportunities, and in particular, nature-based tourism.
So we have Pradeepa from the LCDS unit. Pradeepa has spent all her life in climate-related matters, environment. So Pradeepa, maybe tell us some of the things that we're planning in relation to the mangroves from a research perspective, and some of the challenges and opportunities, not only in mangrove, but through the LCDS, ensuring sustainable livelihood. I see you've been speaking a lot about having large-scale farming opportunities in a sustainable way, and our ecotourism facility. Tell us a bit more that.
Present Guyana is unique in that we have 85% forest cover, and we've maintained over 99% of that expanse over many, many years of utilization. The mangrove forest area is one forest type. And what is happening in the forest, in the mangrove forest area is not just maintaining that, but that has been expanding now. And we see that not only the biodiversity elements, but the sustainable livelihood elements also are thriving. So within the mangrove area, it's a central part to our discussions in the Global Biodiversity Alliance. Mangroves, by its very nature, store close to 5 times the amount of forest carbon than other types of forest. So whatever we know in rich purple heart forests, rich green heart forests, multiply that by 5, and that is what these forests store. So for purposes of the biodiversity aspect, but also for the forest carbon aspect, it is one of the most unique, pristine, outstanding ecosystems that we can speak about. What I think makes our model in Guyana most innovative is the element of nature-based solutions being embraced as a key aspect of our LCDS. The Low Carbon Development Strategy speaks about using existing technology with nature-based aspects to be able to provide key climate mitigation actions like coastal sea defense, looking at ways in which we could provide for drainage and irrigation structures within mangrove areas. So Guyana is at a unique juncture in being able to show how not only in the hinterland area, which we are more known for in terms of our forests, but right here on the coast, we have unique ecosystems, and those are the mangroves.
So tell me about the Global Biodiversity Alliance. How does the Global Biodiversity Alliance fit into all of this, and what has been the international response, and what do we hope to achieve in terms of getting the world to understand the value of our biodiversity, the threat that it is under, and how it is important even for our healthcare system and for the life of our planet.
Mr. President, we have seen an intrinsic link, and you've often spoken about energy security, climate security, and food security sitting at the nexus of development. In Guyana, we've taken that a step further, and we've sought to show the intertwined linkage between biodiversity and climate action. It really is 2 sides of the same coin. Were we to advance protection on biodiversity, we have to address climate action as well and climate change effects. Last July, in July of 2025, under your leadership, Mr. President, we launched the Global Biodiversity Alliance with a singular objective: to create more momentum towards biodiversity conservation. In the world today, we see key biodiversity assets disappearing, and that is meaning that livelihoods that depend on those biodiversity assets, those are also a threat. So what we have sought to do under the leadership of Guyana is to bring together the private sector, other state actors, academic stakeholders, as well as civil society, to speak about and think about what could be done to move forward in terms of biodiversity conservation, what actions we could each take within our spheres, within the private sector, within the development banks, within governments, to advance availability of biodiversity financing and to also create more global momentum and familiarity on the need and importance of biodiversity conservation. Without action, even though there might be many global priorities that are attracting our attention now, without action on biodiversity conservation, the world as we know it won't be the same for the next generation.
Excellent. And Pradeepa, the LCDS is something, I describe it as something that's alive, something that brings benefit to Guyana every single day. I heard, we discussed earlier today, some exciting news about airlines and how Guyana is leading this revolution in having credits sold to airlines. Do you have any news on that for us?
Mr. President, we always have exciting news in the carbon credits front. Guyana has just February of this year received its most latest tranche of forest carbon credits, the highest ever in our issuance in terms of Guyana's credits, at 9 million credits through the Arch-Trees program. And each of these credits have been awarded the Corsia label, which means it's eligible for use by airlines in offsetting their emissions. We are really pleased to report that over the last 18 months, we have seen sales to over 19 airlines.
19?
19 airlines,
wow.
At prices that have gone beyond the levels that we have sold our carbon credits for under our existing agreements, so at higher prices and at accelerated momentum. And this kind of development I see just accelerating in the coming year and a half as the airlines seek to meet their commitments over the next 18 months as committed to under the UN umbrella under which they have made their emissions reductions targets. So like maybe 4 years ago, you wouldn't have thought that we would have cemented our place so solidly in this private sector segment that really is showing not just innovativeness, but bold action being taken by airlines and uniting with nature-based solutions that we in Guyana have been the lead in providing to the world.
Beautiful. Sham, we have been focusing a lot on positioning Guyana as an education hub for environmental, biodiversity, nature-based kind of solutions and study. And I know we've been doing a lot of work with international universities, the Commonwealth Secretariat, and other NGOs. Can you tell us a bit about that? How is that going? And where do you see us in the years ahead?
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, even from the first LCDS, way back in 2010, the establishing of an international center for biodiversity was always a critical component. I'm really excited to say that in the recent years, we've now advanced these conversations with leading academic institutions, Yale University, for example, working now with the Commonwealth through your leadership to have a partnership to establish an international center of excellence for biodiversity. And the timing of this is really aligned with what is happening globally as well as nationally. And of course, your leadership last year in establishing the Global Biodiversity Alliance, where we now have over 75 members, but also having an institution that is going to help Guyana and the world to implement the action plan from this Global Biodiversity Alliance, but importantly, to be a place where we can test different models, for example, on financing, models on looking at how we assess biodiversity, how we monitor biodiversity, models where we can look at sustainability, working with local communities. So Guyana is advancing many things in relation to carbon credits and the amazing work and the results that Pradeepa just mentioned, but also when you look in the biodiversity space, pushing the envelope and looking at out-of-the-box approaches, innovation, as we did with forest climate services, and now looking to do this with biodiversity services, and having a home for that, an international center here in Guyana.
But important to all of this is technology, and how we deploy technology and ensure we have the right technology, not only in monitoring, but also in creating this entire ecosystem. Because for us, climate and environmental stewardship is not a gift only that we're giving to the world. It's part of our new economy. Environmental services, climate services, biodiversity services are economic commodity also, and we are making this point. So tell us a bit about technology and the application of technology in all of this.
Yeah, so Mr. President, one of the critical components in the first LCDS was our monitoring, reporting, and verification system. We call it MRV system. And that sought to utilize technology, satellite imagery, and ground truthing. Working directly with our Forestry Commission, we were able to build an innovative MRV system to monitor forest change. Similarly, when we look at biodiversity, how can we embrace technology? And already we have some initiatives that are looking to see how we can deploy technology to better understand biodiversity. eDNA is one example. Camera trap programs. The use of drones. We are now looking at setting up a network of environmental clubs in our schools, primary and secondary. And part of what those clubs will be doing through eSTEM, environment and STEM, is really applying technology. So the very camera traps, drones, these are tools that our young students are actually being exposed to right now. And it is helping them to understand their environment, what is there. So I'll give you an example. In one of our indigenous communities, the work of the environmental clubs and the kids using the camera traps got the recognition of the Tusha and the councillors. And they have asked, can we have these camera traps be used in our community so we could understand our biodiversity? Why? Because we want to do ecotourism. And what these traps will tell us will help us to plan trails to develop this ecotourism product. So the application of technology and biodiversity is not only from a scientific standpoint, but also from a livelihood standpoint as well.
On this issue of tea on the terrace, before I ask the Minister of Finance to tell us a bit of how the budget incorporate the LCDS and the strategies of the LCDS, because it's important. He's an important man in ensuring LCDS is given life. So whilst we wait on him to come and update us on that, we will take a break and showcase for you, our viewers, a lot of what Sham spoke about, a lot of what Pradeepa spoke about in terms of our forests, our biodiversity, so you can see a bit of this on this program, Tea on the Terrace. Now I invite our Minister of Finance, Dr. Ashley Singh. Ashley, tell us a bit. A lot of people look at the budget, they look at numbers, they only look at the tax incentives and the major infrastructure. Even the infrastructure has a story behind it, and a lot of what you do also must fit into an international frame. And our national frame, which is pursuing this LCDS 2030. Tell us a bit about how the budget accelerate this and incorporate the LCDS into that whole development trajectory.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, Mr. President, for drawing attention to this absolutely critical issue of the phenomenal global leadership that you've been providing. You're absolutely correct, sir, to highlight the importance of the LCDS to the budget and the relationship between the two, and the LCDS to the economy more broadly. And with your permission, the first point I want to make is that everybody around the world knows about Guyana now given our strong economic performance. And they hear particularly about Guyana because of what is happening on the oil and gas side. But I'm always at pains to say to them that in parallel with the oil and gas story, there is another equally remarkable story. And that is the fact that, notwithstanding that we are now an important oil and gas producer in the global scheme of things, we have the unique distinction of continuing to be a net carbon sink, and we will continue to be a net carbon sink even at peak oil production, given our current projections. And that alone positions us in a particular place economically, because it means that we are providing global climate services by absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, even though we are an oil and gas producer. And that's an important point from this, in any conversation about sustainability economically, and particularly in global audiences. So I'm always at pains to emphasize that point, that the climate story in Guyana is an equally important story, and a story that is full of innovation and exciting possibilities, just as the oil and gas story, for which we are now well known. And then the second point that I always make is that we have actually achieved something in Guyana that very few, if any, other country really has, and that is earning revenue for the climate services that we are providing globally. With LCDS 1, the original LCDS, and the now LCDS 2030, between those two successive generations of the LCDS, we have outlined really a remarkable vision under which the climate services being provided by our standing forests are actually earning revenue. And there are very few countries in this position. We earned revenue under the bilateral partnership with Norway in the first generation of the LCDS. And Mr. President, those revenues finance projects in our pre-2015 People's Progressive Party civic government. Unfortunately, when we demitted office in 2015, those projects were essentially ground to a halt by the APNU AFC government. And as soon as we came back into government, in your presidency and under your leadership, all of those projects were reopened, and the revenues that we had earned under that Norwegian partnership have now been unlocked. And those projects are having very real impact. They include the Gaisal project that is building out 33 megawatts of solar energy. They include the hinterland electrification project. They include D&I investments. They include the Amrinian land titling project.
And that D&I investment is a Hope-like canal that will open up tens of thousands of new acreage of land for farmers.
Absolutely. Those canals are actually being financed by revenues that we are earning from the sale of our carbon credits. So that itself, the fact that we are mobilizing revenue from climate services puts us in an almost unique position. And climate revenues are now a significant source of revenue to the Treasury. So in addition to oil revenue, which obviously we're earning, traditional tax revenue, which we've been earning, we now have a significant flow of climate revenue coming into the budget.
And just briefly, tell us how this revenue is connected to people improving their livelihood and creating opportunity. For example, you speak about the solar, you speak about the gas that will come to shore, that will give us energy, that will cut the cost of electricity by half, and the savings in terms of fuel imported, the transport costs. Just tell us a bit about that.
So, Mr. President, I want to give, well, there are two big examples that I want to give. The first is, you mentioned it just now, the Hope-like canals. For a long time, our farmers and our farming communities and their families of farmers have struggled with climate change and extreme climate events. We think of communities like Blackbush Border, for example. When you just need a single episode of extra rainfall, and worse yet, combined with high tide. And one episode could flood people's farms and wipe out their crops and wipe out their incomes for a whole year. And we have struggled with this as a country, and they have struggled with this as farming communities for generations. Under your leadership again, the Hope-like canals were conceptualized to replicate what we built in Hope. We're going to be building 3 of them in regions 3, 4, 3, 5, and 6. And What they will allow us to do is finally achieve a situation where our farming communities will now be better protected from flooding, and therefore their livelihoods will be protected. It may not eliminate the risk of flooding completely, but they will dramatically reduce the risk of flooding.
Improve yield, improve productivity,
better water management.
Better safety for crops,
Absolutely.
greater revenue. But importantly, the hinterland communities.
Well, Mr. President, that was the second example I want to give. Again, on the LCDS 2030, which you pioneered the development of that of the 2030 LCDS, one of the, I believe, most striking commitments, and I think history will record that it will be one of the most transformational commitments, was the commitment that at least 15% of the revenues that we earn under that LCDS 2030, particularly from the sale of carbon credits, at least 15% will be invested into Amerindian communities. And importantly, invested to finance sustainability plans, village sustainability plans that are developed by the villages themselves. So the village leaders consult within their villages, they come up with priorities. Those priorities are included in the VSPs, as they are called, and the VSPs form the basis for the use of the 15% of the the carbon credit sales. And we've been transferring. We transferred 15% in the first year, but in the second and third years, we transferred far more than 15%. Because we wanted to maintain a high level of transfers. And I've had the privilege, Mr. President, to see in several villages the fantastic transformation that is being achieved. Villages have chosen what they wanted to do. Some of them have invested in agriculture, some of them have in economic projects in agriculture, some of them have invested in economic projects in tourism, like a tourist lodge, some of them invested in other facilities. I've had a remarkable experience of seeing how this revenue is being used to transform village economies.
Well, we're going to showcase to you now some of those projects, whether it's the solar projects across the hinterland community in Legwan. We're going to showcase to you some of the Hope Light Canal projects that is being constructed, some of the projects in the hinterland community. And whilst we showcase that, and when we come back, we're going to hear from Minister Vanessa. You know, when Vanessa was placed in housing, a lot of emphasis was on this urban renewal and how do we create a greener Guyana, the beautification that the First Lady is leading, and the parks, and how do we integrate the LCDS in planning. So I want you to look at the magnitude of investment across Guyana from the LCDS, all of these solar farms, these hydro projects, these community-based, community-led projects, and then when we return, we will hear from Vanessa. Vanessa, tell us a bit about how you are, come closer to me, come closer, how you are incorporating aspects of the LCDS, where you spend so much of your life in forestry, working on every phase of the LCDS. Now you have this amazing opportunity to bring it into policy making and to make it alive in your area of work. Tell us a bit about that and how this is being done.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. President. You have provided me a wonderful opportunity to integrate some of my background into some of the policy making and really advancing the work of government and supporting the lives of our fellow Guyanese. So one of the things we're doing, particularly with regard to the Ministry of Housing, where you have placed me, sir, is looking at how we integrate even more critically aspects of sustainability and sustainable construction of houses within the housing sector. So one of the things we're doing is the areas where we are clearing to have housing development, housing schemes, ensuring that we more critically consider how we protect trees that are of shade, how we construct the drainage systems and so on, how we even use some of our local timbers, and ensuring at the same time too that we're providing employment for persons within the timber sector as part of the work of within the housing sector. We are also we have this nice and wonderful initiative that you piloted, Mr. President, with regard to the Yarra Cabra Homestead project. Now that project is targeting predominantly female-headed single-parent families, where homes are being constructed with timber that is used and been harvested sustainably from our own forests, looking at the lesser used species, so not your green heart and purple heart in predominance, but the other, the tornero and the cabocali and so on, to construct those homes. And at the same time, attached to each house is a shade house. And so just as how you have that project on Main Street, every home will have this shade house. It provides them an opportunity to cultivate crops that they can use, number one, to sell, to earn revenue, to be able to pay for the home, but also at the same time to supplement their income and to even help to address issues of their own nutritional needs for the mother and the children at the home. That's one project that I'm particularly enthused about. We also have the Silica City project, which is a flagship project of yours, Mr. President. And that one looks at how we have a housing development that looks at all the modern amenities and facilities and how we do the design. So aside from the design of the homes, we have health facilities, we think about retirement home, how we take care of the elderly, and how all together we have a space that is not in a traditional way, but one that is modern, one that looks at how we look at renewable sources of energy, how we perhaps take the utility power lines that are above ground and put them on the ground and so on, how we really transform and go along the trajectory that our country's development is advancing. I don't know if you want me to mention as well the work you're doing with the Georgetown Urban Development Program.
That's important.
Yes,
right?
and so yes, so of course it is important to the government of Guyana, and especially headed by our president, to ensure that we restore, we revitalize the city of Georgetown and bring it back to its former glory, and really advance it along the same line of the modernity that our country is advancing.
It's about capturing heritage, culture, commerce, waterfront, modernization, greenery, and all architecture,
Yes.
the heritage
Yes.
of our national life
Yes.
in this walking city
Yes.
that we want to create, if
Yes.
we may capture it like that.
Yes.
Listen, today on the Terrace, we had the opportunity to go a bit into the LCDS so that you can see and you can hear how the LCDS is really incorporated in everyday life and everyday development. It was great having you guys on Tea on the Terrace. We're coming live from the National Mangrove Center in this beautiful room. Of course, earlier before the show started, you got an opportunity to see what the building looked like. You got a virtual tour, a visual tour through the lens of our cameras as to what that center looks like. But we invite you to come and see it for yourselves down at Nari here. Thank you once again. God bless you. We are on to big things, better things, and greater things with the People's Progressive Party Civic Government.